Hey everybody, Matty Ice here, and in today's video I'm going to take you through the new Warlord Ruin dungeon in Destiny 2 Season of the Wish. Now before we get too far into this, I greatly appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. Now in order to start this off, you have to go to the tower and collect the quest from Ikora, and then load into the dungeon in the EDZ. To start this dungeon off, you have to kind of climb your way up and around, follow the red flags that are scattered around, and it's pretty straightforward. There are a few traps here and there scattered around the dungeon, so keep your eyes out for those. I don't want to spoil them too much because they are kind of what makes the dungeon fun to go through. But there are chest traps and wall traps that kind of kill you. Now when you get to the first encounter, the main mechanic is that the boss is going to teleport you into these birdcage looking things, where you have to shoot 3 taken eyes to escape. While that's happening, the boss is going to summon 2 taken totems that you have to stand in order to cleanse, and that's what lets you do damage. If you cleanse one of them, you get less time than if you cleanse 2. So try to cleanse them both, and that's what's going to let you do damage as soon as the imminent wish timer expires. When that timer expires, you're going to get a buff called Name's Wish Empowerment, and that's basically your damage window timer. It is possible to one phase this boss on Titan, solo, just because Titan's a busted class right now, but essentially you're just going to rinse and repeat that process until you kill the boss, and then you're going to get teleported into a prison area, which is where you can collect your loot. Now this prison area is a little bit of a puzzle, and there's a few things you want to keep your eyes out for. When you spawn in, if you're solo, you'll be able to kind of run around all 3 sides. If you're in a group, you'll be separated and unable to run around this whole area. But essentially there are these 6 wheels that you have to shoot to activate. When you shoot them the first time, they rotate counterclockwise or to the left. If you shoot them again, they will stop. And if you shoot them a 3rd time, they will rotate clockwise or to the right. You can then shoot them again to stop and reverse them and cycle through as needed. What you need to do is shoot all 6 of these so that they're rotating in the correct order before you then shoot the little lever that activates the whole thing. So you can see here I'm shooting these to make sure that they're spinning to the right, because when you load in there's a skeleton that shows you what you need to do and which order they need to be shot in. So in this example I load in and there's a skeleton that has a rock to its right that has 4 tally marks on it. So that means I need to have 4 of these be rotating to the right or clockwise. So after I get that done, I go ahead and shoot the lever, and then it opens the door and releases me. I'm then able to collect my loot and move on. The main thing you need to do when you're looking at these tally marks is that it's from the perspective of the skeleton. There are 2 of them. It should always add up to 6. So if you get it backwards and you shoot it clockwise as opposed to counterclockwise, just go back through and reverse it. It's not that big a deal. Next, you're going to progress through the maze, which is where a lot of the death traps are. So just be careful about those. But if you are running this a 2nd time or with somebody who's already done it before, you might see one of these SCREEEBs that when you do damage will drop a bunch of motes. Go ahead and kill that if possible, because these dark ether tinctures are helpful for later on, and it's part of the quest progression. So you can kind of get a little bit of a head start, and these people can also open doors for you if possible for the collector bones. I'm going to cover the bone locations in a different video just because there are 10 of them. They're pretty hidden and you have to get them in a certain order, which is kind of frustrating. That's all based on the quest progress, so again, picking up these tinctures just helps you progress that a little faster. But once you've made your way through the death maze, you're going to get to this big open bridge area. You can just kind of fight your way through or just rush to the end. It doesn't really make a big difference. The main thing is just how fast you're able to get through it. At the end, there's going to be an abomination who's guarding a chest. That is a chest that you can actually pick up. If you've made it this far without playing, some of the chests are trapped, so just keep an eye out for that. That's one of those traps I alluded to in the beginning. It's one of the ways you can troll your friends or just ruin your flawless run. But this one is safe to pick up, so go ahead and grab it. And if you're looking at this big open doorway, there's a bone to the right, but the proper way you want to go is to the left. So follow that path to the left. There's going to be a hole in the wall that you have to jump into, which has yet another trap underneath it. Some of these little rocks and snowy platforms will fall out from underneath you. It's kind of easy to see them once you know what to look for, but just keep that in mind when you're trying to traverse this area. Now, once you've made it up all the way to the top of this area, you're going to get to the 2nd encounter. The 2nd encounter is going to work slightly similar to the first. This time, instead of being trapped in cages where you have to shoot the eyes, there's going to be 6 eyes just out and about. Shooting all 6 will spawn a miniature version of the first boss, and that boss will still summon 2 of those taken totems. The boss summons one after a certain amount of time of you shooting him, and the other upon its death. So what you want to do, again, is try and get them to spawn both, so don't kill them too quickly, and then you have to stand in them and cleanse them. The main difference this time is instead of the birdcage killing you, there's going to be a giant tempest storm that tries to slowly freeze you throughout this whole part, and there's torches along the back wall that you can stand in order to relieve and get shelter from the storm. But once you've cleansed the totems and the storm has passed, depending on how many you've cleansed, there will be up to 4 flame charges. You have to go and dunk those in the pillars that are next to the boss, and that's what lets you do damage. Again, when you do damage to the boss, the storm starts back up, and you have to stand within range of the pillars in order to keep the storm from killing you. It's also what lets you do damage to the boss. If you're outside the range of the pillar, you cannot do damage to the boss, he will be immune. So you have to rotate between all 4 pillars, and when you finish the 4th pillar, the damage phase is ended. Make sure that if you're going to do this in a fire team, you all group up and coordinate on which pillar you're going to start at, because you don't want to accidentally use more than one at a time. But simply rinse and repeat that until the boss is dead, and it should be an easy peasy cleanup. This is definitely one of the more forgiving encounters. There's not too many death things other than the Tempest and ads that you have to worry about. The second secret chest is a little hard to miss. It's literally on your path forward after the second boss. There's going to be a room with a bunch of chests. What you're looking for is the one that doesn't have that blue glow around it. That blue glow kind of signifies that it's a trap chest. So simply pick up this chest and then keep moving on. Intermission between the second and third encounter, you should find another SCREEEEB if you're at that part of the quest step. If not, he might not show up. But either way, there's another bone in this area. But again, I'll cover that in a separate video. So you're going to progress through a lot of challenging platforming, but eventually you're going to wind up at the final boss. Now the final boss is going to take the mechanics of the first 2 encounters and kind of smush them together. The floating meatball is going to have 6 taken eyes around it. You have to shoot all 6 eyes in order to start the process of getting the totems. So once you shoot all 6 eyes, just like with the ogre, 2 mini bosses are going to spawn. They can spawn up to 2 of those taken totems. You have to stand in them and cleanse them. This time, instead of a storm wipe mechanic, there's going to be a hex wipe mechanic. So when you start to cleanse the totems, you're going to become hexed, and you're going to have about 12 seconds to get rid of your hex. The way you get rid of it is there's going to be a special immune enemy. It's going to be one of the immune Scorn Wraith guys, and you get rid of your hex by punching them. If they happen to punch you back, they will transfer the hex back to you, and you will die. As you can see on the screen here, I was unable to transfer my hex because I got meleeed back, so I died. But as long as you have one person on your team still alive, they can res you, and it's not a big deal. This is mainly a solo issue. But once you do that, you'll be able to do damage to the boss, and again, your damage window is dependent upon how many totems you've cleansed. The boss does have a health gate for this section. If you are unable to do enough damage to get past that health gate, you just have to repeat the same thing in the area you're in. Otherwise, you're going to progress to the next area. There are 3 areas, and then you get to the final section, which is slightly different. But each of these first 3 areas are essentially the same. The layout's just slightly different. So you're just going to rinse and repeat that until you finish the 3rd section. So once you've done damage to the boss 3 times, you're going to essentially go into a faster damage phase, where you're going to have 3 more spaces to do damage to the boss, but this time you don't have to worry about doing the whole hex thing. The boss is going to appear in front of you along with some of the eyes. The eyes, when they all fill up and start tagging the boss, ends the damage phase, so if you're able to break some of the eyes with eruptions or explosions or something like that, it can slightly prolong your damage phase. Otherwise, once your damage window is over, you're going to progress to the next floating island. There's going to be like a little cure animation on your screen. It doesn't actually heal you, but it just signifies that you're able to do damage again. You'll see that Nazim's wish empowerment, that lets you know that you're able to do damage, and again, you just do it again. Again, if you can break the eyes, it slightly prolongs your damage timer, but I would mostly focus on survivability. You do have to keep moving because the platforms you're standing on become corrupted, and it will damage you if you don't progress to the next island. You also can't do damage until you progress to that next island. Once you've finished doing your damage, if you don't push the boss into final stand, you'll be teleported back to the bottom, where you get to rinse and repeat the entire thing again. Once you get to the final stand health gate, the boss teleports you to the final stand location, which is essentially just what we looked at, where you're up at the top doing damage, just in an open area without the hexes. If you are, for whatever reason, unable to defeat the boss in Final Stand, it does wipe you, so just keep that in mind. But otherwise, you're just going to finish up killing the boss, and that's going to be this dungeon. As I mentioned before, there are a bunch of Ahamkara bones scattered around. I'm going to make a separate video on that. It's part of the quest progression, and they kind of give you general hints about where they are, but there is one that you can easily miss. I missed it. A lot of people will tend to miss this one. It's right here at the chest for when you defeat the final boss. You'll see on my screen it says collect, and I just didn't see that, whatever reason, didn't collect it. So it's right there. Don't forget to pick that one up. But that's going to be it. So again, I hope you found this video helpful. Again, if you did, I'd greatly appreciate it if you could like it, subscribe to the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Hey, Future Matt here, as I'm going back through editing this right before I publish. One thing I want to tell you about is that the chests seem to move around. So in the example that I used in the video for the first secret chest, that one on my second run through actually was not a secret chest that you could collect. It was a trap chest. So just keep that in mind. There's going to be a bunch of chests scattered around. I imagine that first secret chest will move around. The second one seemed to be consistent just because it's a room full of chests. But you might want to just keep your eyes out for any other potential chests that could be that first secret chest.